Hey, trees can be difficult to draw, but let me show you a simple approach that will make it a little bit easier. My name's Kurt. I'm a dad who draws. Come on, let's get to work. Let's practice some drawing some trees here. If you were an architect, and so if you were looking down on top of an architectural plan or a landscape idea, a lot of times they will draw these bushes and trees and do this sort of thing to indicate, hey, a tree is going here, okay? And they might do different types to make suggestions of how a landscape architectural drawing might look, and they draw it from a top view standpoint. But there's something we can learn about that, in that the most simple idea of a tree is really a round sphere on top of a trunk. And if we start off with that basic idea, we could start to form in our mind the sense of how round something is. So if we were to take generally a sphere and light it, we've talked about this multiple times, where we have our sphere, and we talk about how when we shade a sphere, the shade is on one side because the light is reflecting off the ground, and it's adding a bounce back, where light is bouncing off the ground and lights the bottom section of a sphere. Well, in a sense, a tree is no difference, in that if light is coming from one side, we can begin to shade our tree also on one side. And trees are also going to get some bounce back. So this is the most simplest way that we can think of a tree. Of course, now we also have a trunk system, and that trunk is going to have some texture, and we can always add surface lines to help us understand that trunk system. And we can add almost like roots coming out. That will also help read that as a tree as well, because of the roots. So let's take this idea and explore it a little bit more, get a little more complicated now, all right? So let's just say we're going to start with another simple process here. Here's our sphere of our tree. But on the sphere, we actually have another sphere right here, and then we have another one right over here. You see that? And then our trunk's coming around here like this. And maybe instead of, like, we have a smaller trunk coming from this side over here, and now we have some variation going on. We have some of our roots coming at the base of that tree. And as I draw the roots, of course, I'm thinking of an oval, because these roots are reaching out. If I start thinking of, this is going to be shade over here, this is going to be in shade over here, and of course this part of the tree is going to be in shade. And then I might have another group of leaves behind all of that. That's going to be in shade. And then I might have another group of leaves back in here. So it just keeps playing into this idea that we keep thinking of this idea of mass. Mass and volume. Let's, just in case if someone is brand new and they haven't seen what we're talking about here, let's quickly discuss surface lines, okay? And this is a great example. I've brought this up many times before, but if it's your first time, that's totally okay. So what I mean by surface lines is the texture that is created as you walk around a surface. So in this case, look at this. We'll have tree A and tree trunk B here. And on A, if I do my surface lines like this, and then I get to this trunk and I go the opposite way, by adding the surface lines, I give a sense that this is going back in space. And if I go this other way, I can make this branch come forward. You see that? Now in B, let's go the opposite. Let's draw it this opposite way here. Opposite, so it's opposite than A, and this one will make this one go back. You see? So by using the use of surface lines, we can give the illusion that something not only has a lot of depth, but we can make it go back or come forward from just its. We could take a shape, that Y shape, and give it a lot of dimension. So once I have this this tree and shape here, now I could come in here and start to add some detail. Just by adding a few leaves, I don't have to put every, it's like drawing hair. You don't want to draw all the individual leaves, but in groups of leaves, just to give the idea. So as you can see, I'm starting to add some leaves to my tree, and it really gives a sense of volume. Now, we could continue to look at this in more detail and keep adding more detail, and you could just see it would continue to develop. All right, let's look at a couple of other ideas here, okay? Trees are great because you could really get away with some different branches, different trunks. Here's this one might be considered a like a bonsai. Where the trunk kind of comes up like this. You see, maybe there's a branch coming off the side here. And then maybe this is the big canopy going over here. You see this? We got something going on over here. So a lot of this is I'm using reference, but I am drawing lightly so I can come back in with some detail later on. So I want to keep it really, yeah, he is asleep. I I want to keep it really loose, just like everything else at this beginning stages here. So let's just come in here now and add a couple branches that are showing up. And then in the trunk here, I'm going to add some, like, just some of the bark that's kind of coming up, surface lines. Some leaves maybe here. Again, thinking of like what's on top, thinking of volume here. Thinking of volume. Thinking of objects that are in front of other objects. You could even start to add some tone in the background. To use silhouette. My light's still coming in from this direction up there. So I'm definitely thinking of that. You could even vary the opacity by holding lighter on your pencil. Oops, that's a little too dark there. So a lot of it is very gestural for me, and I'm just keep adding more and more detail. But I'm thinking of volume. Constantly thinking of volume. What shape is on top of other shapes? using surface lines to help tell the story. Let's draw another one. I'm going to draw another tree, but I'm going to draw it right next to this one, okay? Let's just say we have a long... Somebody asked in the group, and I can't remember who it was, about an aspen tree. So I failed to get a picture of an aspen tree, but we'll just make one up. Again, the same idea here. One other thing I was thinking of when you're drawing trees, when it comes especially to branches, you know, we have this idea of a tapered line where it's thick on one end and it tapers. And our branches just keep branching off and get smaller and smaller as they extend from that taper. And I think aspen trees have these little stripes where the bark is peeling off sometimes. Again, I'm thinking of these things as spheres. So they have volume. And overlap. On the ground here, I'm adding some grasses. Constantly working overlap. I think another thing I was just thinking as I'm drawing these is, you know, we this came up at some point talking about when we're facing something that is chaotic, our mind likes to make order of it. So we will have a habit of making things perfectly even. And in nature, we want to avoid, and we want to be careful that we don't make things perfectly even. So in this case, we might put 2 together and then 3 over here. So we're constantly working with grouping. A little trick, maybe, if I haven't said it before, to work with grouping is, let's just take the example of grouping together some rocks. You know, if you want to have a nice variation of rocks, you would think like, okay, this is the father rock, and then this is the mother rock, and then there's a little kid, and maybe they have a couple little babies, and then you have a brother over here. So if you think of if you think of when you're grouping objects together in this family type of relationship of sizes, it can help you get a lot of variation in your size, so that you don't keep making everything the exact same size. This here is far more interesting to look at than this is down here. We're going to see this more in nature than we will of this example down here. But our mind always wants to keep bringing things back to this, and we want to avoid that. So we want to think of this up on top. This is a much better approach, especially in nature here. Work in threes. That's a good example. Okay, any questions? Any questions on that? I'm going to go ahead and move on to our elf drawing.